On July 20, 1969, Neil Armstrong became the first person to set foot on the moon. However, 2 years before that momentous occasion, a horrific tragedy occurred within the United States space exploration program. During a test launch, a devastating fire broke out inside the cabin of Apollo 1, claiming the lives of all 3 astronauts aboard the spacecraft. This catastrophic event dealt a heavy blow to America's space program at the time and posed a threat to the future of NASA, the United States Aerospace Agency. The 1960s were a period when America's space race became more intense than ever before. In 1961, President John F. Kennedy set the goal of sending a person to the moon and safely returning them by the end of the decade. NASA engineers and technicians began working at a dizzying pace to accomplish the set objective. In his 1966 published book, Calculated Risk, author George Leopold described this race as a deadly disease called moon fever. In 1966 alone, NASA carried out at least 5 flights as part of the Gemini project. In addition, NASA engineers and technicians successfully developed their 3rd spacecraft, Apollo. This vehicle was delivered to the Kennedy Space Center in August 1965 to prepare for its first launch in February 1966. The previous flights of the Mercury and Gemini projects aimed to examine human behavior in space and determine the destination. However, Apollo was an entirely new program with the mission of safely landing humans on the moon and returning them to Earth. Virgil, Gus Grissom, Ed White, and Roger Chaffee were the selected astronauts for the first manned mission. While NASA prepared for the launch, numerous last-minute changes were made to the spacecraft. It seemed that no one truly cared about this significant event. Everything was always rushed. Furthermore, the astronauts at the time were notorious for taking risks lightly. Walt Cunningham, a backup member of the Apollo 1 crew, recalled, "We always thought that if you looked at what NASA had accomplished up to that point, we would have had at least one failure before we could set foot on the moon." However, none of us expected that failure to occur on the ground. That is exactly what happened on January 27, 1967. The Apollo 1 crew entered the spacecraft at 1 p.m. The spacecraft hatch was closed at 2:42 p.m. However, due to communication issues between the spacecraft and the control center, the rehearsal was postponed to the evening of the same day. Around 6:30 p.m., Commander Grissom expressed disappointment from inside the spacecraft, saying, "How are we going to get to the moon if we can't talk between 2 or 3 buildings?
How are we going to get to the moon if we can't talk between 2 or 3 buildings?"
Just 8 seconds later, a horrified scream came from inside the spacecraft. While the crew struggled with the intense heat to open the cabin door, technicians attempted to extinguish the flames using fire extinguishers. Shortly after, the intense pressure inside the cabin caused the spacecraft structure to rupture. Thick smoke gradually filled the control room. The final cabin door was eventually opened, but it was too late. After an official investigation, NASA announced that the crew had perished. The astronauts had inhaled excessive carbon monoxide and toxic smoke emitted from the burning components inside the cabin, resulting in cardiac arrest. They had lost consciousness before being consumed by the fire. This news provided little solace to the devastated NASA officials. In the following months, an extensive investigation was conducted to uncover the mistakes that led to the disaster. According to the investigation's findings, a spark originated from faulty wiring beneath Grissom's seat, which caused the fire. The flammable materials inside the cabin, such as foam padding and nylon netting. 2 years after the devastating accident, the goal set by President Kennedy was finally achieved. On July 20, 1969, the astronauts of Apollo 11, Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin, successfully set foot on the moon and returned safely to Earth. This historic achievement marked a significant milestone in human space exploration and solidified the United States' position as a leader in space exploration. The tragedy of Apollo 1 served as a painful reminder of the risks and challenges involved in pushing the boundaries of space exploration. It led to significant changes and improvements in the Apollo program, ensuring the safety of future missions. The dedication and perseverance of NASA and its astronauts paved the way for remarkable achievements in space exploration and expanded our understanding of the universe. Despite the heartbreaking loss of the Apollo 1 crew, their sacrifice contributed to the advancements and successes of subsequent space missions. Their legacy lives on as a reminder of the bravery and determination required to explore the unknown and reach for the stars.